Good afternoon. Welcome back to Global Media Network, LLC, Passionate World Talk Radio Network, Educate, Enlighten, and Entertain. And on this episode of Lest We Forget Historical with your host, Lillian Cauldwell, we are going to talk about the assassinations and the president. And I'm going to give you some useful facts and some substantiated figures. So when you go over to https:// Passion World Talk Radio Network /blogs, you will find the link that I got this story from. It's under common license, so I can use it without any trouble. But the fact of the matter is, it does talk about our presidents and also assassinations, which seems to become an every time occurrence every time somebody runs for president of the United States. Now, the only other potential candidate who was running and was assassinated, but put him into the wheelchair, was David Duke. And I guess the person who tried to take his life decided that he did not want the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, a group developed during the Civil War and continued after the Civil War. And so he decided to take matters into his own hands and leveled a legally owned gun sponsored by the American Rifle Association. And he put the Duke in his sights, pulled the trigger, and put the gentleman into a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And although I did not agree with what David Duke said, it doesn't give me a 007 number from James Bond to kill. And that seems to be the prevailing philosophy these days. If you don't like somebody, you can do more than just curse them out. You can go over, find a gun, find instructions on Google, have a 3D printer, create one, put it together by following the really nifty instructions you can find, and voila, you have an arms that you can go out and kill anybody you want. And guess what? Unlike drinking, where in most states you have to be 21 now, or voting, you have to be at least 18, or serving in the military, which you have to be at least 18 and sign up for the draft, although I understand it's no longer required, but soon it may be. There's no age limit of timing a farm on, like the gentleman who bought his son, his 16-year-old son, or maybe he was 15 at the time, a rifle as a gift, birthday gift. And that's why the father is now in jail along with his son, because his son didn't use his gun or firearm wisely. But I digress. Former President, potential Donald Trump, someone took another shot on him on September 15th, 2024, when he was at the golf club in Florida. And again, this gentleman who waited on that golf course for 12 hours, very patient, these killers, and when the presidential candidate stepped into view, he took a shot, and yes, he also missed, which leaves one to wonder, maybe they can buy guns, but nobody really has certainly taught them how to shoot it. I am the product of the 1950s, and when I was growing up, air rifles were quite popular to give to children under the age of 10, air guns. And when you set it up and cocked the handle in such a way, it made a sound like a bullet came out of the barrel. And one of the first lessons you learn is you never, ever point a gun at anybody. And if you're carrying it, it needs to be carried down with the hole where the bullet goes through, down on the ground. It's sort of like running with a knife or a pair of scissors. You don't want to be holding the blades turned into you. You want to be turning them away from you. So if you trip and fall, you don't accidentally stab yourself with a sharp object. Something to think about. There have been 45 men elected to the president since our country became the country. 1776, yes. And about 40% of them have experienced attempts on their lives. And 4 presidents, Abraham Lincoln, James A. Garfield, William McKinley, and John F. Kennedy, have all been assassinated. While Trump and Theodore Roosevelt were both former presidents when they were shot, Ronald Reagan, of course, was shot at by a young man who believed Jody was in love with him, and she didn't even know he existed. And of course, he was sent to prison and then subsequently released. He was hurt and shot in office, and the would-be assassin almost ended Ronald Reagan's life in 1981. 13 other presidents, Andrew Jackson, William Howard Taft, Herbert Hoover, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama and Joe Biden have all known plots or failed attempts to end their lives. Many were subjected to multiple attempts, and likely that the public was never informed of the other attempts upon them or other presidents. So why do we have a president? Well, it symbolizes the ideas of the United States of America. They often act as the physical embodiment of our country, their political party, and its values. Of course, these days it's kind of hard to tell because when these candidates run for their designated position, they tell you everything bad about their opposing candidate, but nothing what they're going to do for this country, which is really sort of scary. When individuals are unhappy with who the candidates are or its policies, some choose to talk about it. They express their opinions, but others let the gun do their talking. Or bows and arrows, I guess, or axes, anything that's sharp and can end somebody's life quickly is probably the best form of assassination. Those who choose to assassinate a president inadvertently humanize the very presidents they want to kill. So what was the reaction? The first time, Trump called for unity. Second time, he raised his fist, and I was waiting for the Nazi symbol to come out and say, "Heil Trump!" But he didn't go that far. And of course, he did not have any excuses, and he certainly did not call for unity among both parties and the people who supported them. With the exception of Gerald Ford's 2 attempted assassins, all the predators have been male. Something to think about. This includes Trump's 2 assailants, men who were once enthralled by him, but grew disenchanted. Maybe Project 2025 had something to do with it. One doesn't know yet. They just grew disenchanted with American politics. I understand. I'm disenchanted. And it was pretty much told to me, vote for the less of the evil of the 2 people, which is not much of a recommendation. The Secret Service thwarted an armed criminal man, hiding at a Trump golf course in Palm Beach, Florida on September 15th. I mentioned it. The Secret Service fired at the person who fled in a car. He did not die by police. He lived. He was apprehended and he was arrested. Then 2 months later, after Trump was wounded at a Pennsylvania rally on July 13th by a young man who attempted to kill Trump with a gunshot to the head, and we both know he failed. And many of these assassinations do not make sense to the common man. A man named Charles Guiteau killed Garfield in 1881 because he wanted to be awarded a patronage position in the government. John Wilkes Booth killed Lincoln as part of a larger plot attempting to create chaos to help reignite the Southern cause and support for slavery. On the same night Lincoln was killed in 1865, his Secretary of State, William Seward, was attacked, but he survived. At the same time, the plot was for Vice President Andrew Johnson to also be killed by another man, George Atzerodt, who instead got drunk and threw the knife into a gutter. Probably out of all of them, he had the most common sense. Booth and his co-conspirators hoped that these politicians' almost simultaneous deaths would throw the Union into disarray with an unclear path of succession. They forgot about General Grant, who was well known as a good strategician, and he had absolutely no sense of humor, and he was dead loyal to Lincoln. The plan fell apart, and with Johnson still alive, the nation's clear path of presidential succession remained intact until they tried Mr. Johnson for impeachment, but it didn't work. Half a century later, while former President Theodore Roosevelt was campaigning for a third presidential term in 1912, he was shot in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. See, this is a truly, every state in the Union has an opportunity to try to assassinate someone. Though he was shot at almost point blank range, Roosevelt was saved by his poor eyesight and long-winded nature. Roosevelt had a 50-page speech folded in his pocket, as well as his steel eyeglass case. Both items slowed the bullet enough that it just entered his chest, but not deeper than the muscle. How cool is that? Roosevelt famously proceeded to give a 90-minute speech before leaving for the hospital. One of the closest comparisons to Trump of two recent assassination attempts was when two women tried to kill President Gerald Ford in September of 1975. Both Trump and Ford were targets of a well-publicized assassination attempts within a short period of time, and both were targeted by individuals with logically unclear motives. Lynette, quote, squeaky, unquote, Frome, a one-time member of the Manson family, a well-known cult, in the 1970s attempted to kill Ford in order, she claimed, to save California redwood trees. At the time, the Environmental Protection Agency was warning people about worsening effects of smog on the environment, led her to believe assassination was the only way to preserve the trees. Frome, dressed entirely in red, went to Sacramento, where the president was visiting, aimed and fired at him within a 2-foot range, which is 212 inches. That's not a lot of distance between the two of them, except the gun didn't fire. Bystanders heard a click, seeing she had not put a round in the chamber because she probably did not know much about guns. After that first attempted shot, the Secret Service intervened. Later, Frome claimed she did not want to shoot the president. 17 days later, on September 22nd in San Francisco, Sarah J. Moore shot at Ford from about 40 feet away and missed. Her second shot missed as well, this time because a bystander, Oliver Sipple, grabbed the gun, forcing the shot to go wide, injuring a taxi driver. Well, he wasn't running for president, so it was okay, right? Finally, Reagan survived an assassination attempt by John Hinckley Jr. on March 30th, 1981. Hinckley was obsessed with the popular film Taxi Driver, and in particular, the character played by actress Jodie Foster. He believed that if he could impress Foster, she would date him. As Reagan left the Washington Hilton Hotel, Hinckley fired 6 shots in 2 seconds. One shot deflected off the car and into the president's left side, hitting his lung. One of the funnier lines Reagan would later repeat was born that day when he looked at doctors prepping him for surgery and said, "I just hope you're Republicans." And one doctor replied, "Today, Mr. President, we are all Republicans." So throughout our history, American presidents and occasionally candidates have been targeted by gunmen and other potential attackers to express their unhappiness about our democratic government. The rationales for these assassins' actions vary from simply chaos to delusions, anointing the assassin or would-be assassin a heroic main character. Presidential assassins reflect the best and the worst of people simultaneously. The violence itself shows the worst of society, but Americans often seem at their best in the aftermath. I think it's the only time we're united, besides when they attacked us in 2011 and everybody flew the American flag. Everybody. But enthusiasm wanes, doesn't it? Like race insurgents once recognized, politics should never supplement humanity or be more valued than a person's health and safety. The person who wrote this article is Shannon Bell O'Brien, Associate Professor of Instruction at the University of Texas at Austin. And as I repeated, and as I said at the beginning, it is covered by a common law license. So it's all right to use it in today's, or it could be tonight if you're in Europe or Asia, program. And you can hear this all over again at youtube.com/Passionate World Radio, PW Talk Radio. You can also find it on facebook.com/Lest We Forget Historical, or facebook.com/Passionate World Radio. You can hear it and also see the video on our website, https://Passionate World Radio, PassionateWorldTalkRadio.com. This program, Lest We Forget Historical, is brought to you by two sponsors. One is the Flex Connection, and you too can buy a monthly subscription to use Artificial Intelligence by Ruby AI, which is the approachable artificial intelligence. Please go over to https://esc73.tryrubi.a and sign up either for a $50 or $100 monthly subscription. And you can get paid immediately by inviting two people to come and join you. One-stop shopping, I might add. The other company is The Obstacles of Podcasting with your host, me, Lillian Cauldwell. And in 2 months, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, an expert, or just want to learn how to use it in middle school, high school, and even college and university level, or take it as a continuing education class, because either you use it or you lose it and you get left behind. Thank you all very much for listening, and have a terrific weekend.